Thank you for joining us on the program from the National Assembly. I am Ignatius Nkwo. Well, today we'll bring to you public hearing by the Senate Committee on Agriculture and Rural Development. That public hearing was on some bills that have passed second reading in the Senate. These include the National Agricultural Development Fund Establishment Bill. It was another opportunity for the public to take part in bill process in the National Assembly.
It is with great pleasure that I welcome you, special dignitaries, to this all-important public hearing organized by the Senate Committee on Agriculture and Rural Development at the instance of the Senate plenary. This public hearing is to consider three bills, namely the National Food Reserve Agency Bill 2020 SB 189, the National Agricultural Development Fund Establishment Bill 2020 SB 119, and the Agricultural Research Council of Nigeria Amendment Bill 2020 SB 118. Today's public hearing is aimed at receiving input from stakeholders and the general public with a view to coming up with solid legislations that will promote storage of food grains and other food commodities for strategic purposes, ensure a reliable supply of designated commodities to meet local shortfalls in supply of agricultural commodities nationally, reduce post-harvest losses, and encourage private sector investment, among others. To achieve these, we will require funding. Funding for agriculture is long overdue. This has necessitated the need for the National Agricultural Development Fund Bill, which will address this issue in addition to other benefits. The fund will provide finance to support agricultural development, thereby addressing challenges of food production and food insecurity in the country. While we have in place legislations on agricultural funding and food security, we also need to strengthen our research systems. To address this, the Agricultural Council of Nigeria Amendment Bill, which is the third bill to be considered at this hearing, seeks to amend the ARCN Act to, among other things, reconstitute the membership of the board, appoint deputy executive secretaries and assistant executive secretaries, establish agencies such as the National Center for Agricultural Mechanization, the Federal College of Agriculture, by placing them under the control of the Council. The ARCN requires a central body to coordinate, supervise, regulate, and manage the National Agricultural Research Institutes. With the amendment, the Council of the ARCN will be able to advise the federal government on national policies and priorities in agricultural research, training, and extension activities. The committees of agriculture in the National Assembly have seen through the good times and the dark ages of the ARCN. The committee is glad that the executive heeded to its insistence that the ARCN be headed by a professional and not some imposed staff who almost ran down the institution and its primary mandate. Research is key in any country. Agricultural research cannot be overlooked, especially in the period when there is a global pandemic, COVID-19, has shown the world that food security is essential to man. While every sector of the economy was shut down, countries allowed farming and food products because without food, no one can survive. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our national food security is important. Our food reserves were on hand to cushion the immediate effect of the pandemic at its onset when the federal government approved the release of 70,000 tons. Indeed, we should love the initiative of the sponsor of these bills and the support the bill have so far received from the leadership of the Senate and distinguished senators during its plenary sessions. It is my sincere belief that the Senate Committee on Agriculture and Rural Development will give these bills the expedited action they deserve. However, your input as major stakeholders will be taken into consideration, which is the main reason for subjecting bills emanating from plenary to public hearing. Once we as a country are committed to put in place proper agricultural legislation, Nigeria's food production will generate food security, create jobs, boost the economy in line with the government's desire to diversify the economy. This will also meet the global requirement of goal number 2 of the Sustainable Development Goal, which calls on nations to end hunger, achieve food security, and promote sustainable agriculture. You will agree that this government is sensitive to the desire for transforming agriculture from being merely a means of attaining food self-sufficiency into a powerful engine of growth and prosperity, especially in the context of new opportunities of the global market. These can greatly be achieved by putting in place the right policies and legislations. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, honorable members of the House of Representatives, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, let us join hands in our respective responsibilities to position agriculture in its rightful place. At this point, please permit me to once again thank the President of the Senate of the Federation of Nigeria, the leadership of the Senate, and the distinguished members of the House of Representatives, for taking this great stride and honoring us with their presence. I must also thank our invited guests for honoring our invitation despite the challenges of the times.
It is a great pleasure to be here at this public hearing on 3 bills. The bills were rightly referred to the Committee on Agriculture and Rural Development by the Senate for a more rigorous vetting consistent with our legislative procedures. The public hearing is the part of a vetting process where stakeholders are welcome to make inputs. This is additionally in line with the democratic ethos of inclusion and involvement in decision-making. In asking for input through the public hearing, we trust in your sense of judgment. We, however, need to understand that these judgments are relative or different. Based on this, we always require tolerance to better appreciate each other. In being tolerant, we learn from ourselves and can eventually harmonize our thoughts towards top-notch decisions. This committee has been diligent in preparing for this public hearing. It is not only because they have 3 bills before them, but because the issues are a priority in the diversification of our economy. The agricultural sector is a key sector in the expansion of our economy beyond oil. We have long highlighted this point as a people, but the onus is back on us to ensure we make this happen. It is the reason we are here again. We are again emphasizing the need to grow what you eat and to eat what you grow. These are paraphrased definitely from the statement by President Muhammadu Buhari. To boost the agricultural sector and mainstream it as a core sector in the stimulation of the nation's economy. We have 3 bills to examine. These bills are obviously either for the creation of new administrative agencies or the strengthening of existing ones. Through the proposals, we are highlighting the importance of regulation in the sector's consolidation. It might be appropriate to appreciate the trust of the proposals from the surface, but a better consideration can only come through a public hearing like this. We now can increase our understanding whether for or against. I am confident the Senate Committee will do a superb job of harmonizing our positions for the eventual consideration of the Senate in plenary. I commend the committee for doing an outstanding job thus far, just as I wish you all a successful deliberation. On this note, it is now my pleasure to declare this public hearing open.
Nigeria is blessed if we can channel all the resources towards developing this very important bill. I think we can move this country forward and even feed Africa. And as a matter of fact, we will give all the necessary support and cooperation to ensure the success of this bill as it is today. And I want to urge the people that are here to give their contribution towards the development of this historic event.
Stakeholders in Nigeria's agricultural sector made their inputs on the two bills, with the Minister of Agriculture leading the pack.
The Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development had been fully involved in consultation with the committee in developing some of these very important bills. And we deeply appreciate the commitment of this committee to the development of this very important sector. Everyone knows that agriculture today and for time to come remains the most important option for this country to diversify its economy and achieve food security. And that is why everyone will appreciate the focus of this government on agriculture and rural development. Even without COVID-19, government has been focusing on investment in this sector in order to diversify our economy so that we don't continue to rely on one commodity, which is oil. So that underscores our close relationship with this committee. So these three bills are very important for the growth, development, and promotion of agriculture. The National Food Reserve Agency bill is particularly significant at this time. As you know, we are a country with a population of maybe 200 million, and we have the fastest population growth in the continent. Nigeria may be the fourth most populous nation on earth in the next 25 years. Every of those mouths will need food every day. So it is important for our survival as a nation to ensure that we work towards achieving food security. No nation can afford to live without adequate food reserve. But this is particularly important and significant for Nigeria for many reasons. One, you know we have vulnerabilities and threats. We know our human development indices. We are confronted with security challenges, which actually cause internal displacement of our people who have no access to food. We have flooding, and now we have COVID. I'm sure you remember that the president, in the face of the COVID pandemic, approved the release of 70,000 metric tons of grains to be distributed to the vulnerable people. That was about 70% of our strategic food reserve. We had 108,000 in food reserve. If you compare it, 108,000 metric tons and 200 million people, you know that we were not very comfortable. So government is committed to strategic food reserve. But many years ago, the ministry, in consultation with the National Assembly and other stakeholders, came to the conclusion that government alone cannot guarantee national strategic food reserve. We need to involve the private sector. So of our 25 silos, only 6 are retained. The rest have been concessions so that we will promote private businesses to take interest in reserving food for our people. And that also will help in stabilizing food prices. So strategic food reserve is critical to our survival. So I'm sure
His Excellency may recall that this bill was actually passed before, in 2008, by the Erdogan administration. But unfortunately, it wasn't assented to by the Jonathan administration because of a report of a committee established by government called Oresanya Report, which actually recommended that that agency should be scrapped. So, in the face of this, sir, I would wish to plead to be given time to make consultations before we submit a final position on this, because the President has just directed that the report of Oresanya Committee should be implemented. Thank you. Now, with respect to the other bills of establishing the Agricultural Development Fund bill, again, we can't overemphasize that. Some years ago, the African leaders gathered in Malabo and committed themselves to funding agriculture to the tune of 10% of national budget. If we look at our funding now, you find that we are very far short of 10%. Many countries that are now called Asian tigers actually lifted themselves to develop by investing in agriculture and rural development. You can mention Indonesia, Malaysia, and Singapore. So we fully support this bill, and we are making some observations and inputs, which we are going to submit in writing, just on some of the provisions. Agricultural research. This country has the highest number of agricultural-related institutions in Africa. But they are largely ineffective, with due respect to my colleagues, because there has been no coordination and focus on agricultural research. If you don't invest in research, you can't aim to have high-yielding variety of seeds. You can't seek to enhance the fertility of your soil. You cannot aim to have higher yields per hectare. So you cannot achieve food security. So we fully support this bill and hope that by amending this act of the Agricultural Research Council of Nigeria, it will enhance its capacity and ability to coordinate research, to enhance research, and ensure that it establishes linkages with other universities that have very good faculties of agriculture, so that agriculture will be the driving force of our economic diversification. We are going to make a submission with their permission on our input on this bill on the amendment of Agricultural Research Council of Nigeria bill.
The Central Bank is very much in support of the three proposed bills. We're here particularly for the fund, the Agricultural Development Fund. We have seen the draft bill we've gone through, and we're fully, Central Bank is fully in support. And we only so that maybe there are some observations that we make that will be submitted to the Secretariat as soon as our governor will go through and give us the go-ahead. So we're going to make submissions. But in principle, Central Bank is in line with our thoughts. And I think some of the observations that arose, this committee has a lot of student people that they can go around it and make sure that the fund is established.
Office of the Accountant General of the Federation, like others, supported the bills but differed on the proposed sources of the funds, while the Federal Inland Revenue Services opposed the Development Fund bill.
The area we are looking at, which we saw is the area of funding. We strongly support the two bills, the two establishment bills, the Agricultural Development Fund and the National Food Reserve Agency. We are of the firm belief that if the proposed bill is enacted, it will certainly add great value to agricultural development in this country. and especially food security in this country. This is one of the primary responsibilities of government. Funding from 0.5% development of natural resources fund. That's one of the areas that was listed as the funding sources. We recognize that development of natural resources fund is an existing fund already in the federation. The fund belongs to the three tiers of government. If you are taking 0.5% from it, it will require the concurrence of the National Executive Council before you can take any money from it, because this belongs to the three tiers of government. And already, the existing fund, the Natural Resources Fund, Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, Ministry of Mines and Steel Development, Ministry of Water Resources are beneficiaries from this fund. They take, intervention funds are given to these ministries from this fund. So if this Agricultural Development Fund will take 0.5% from this fund, is it one-off take or is it a continuous one? And if it's going to be a continuous one, would that mean that they will not benefit as intervention agencies, just like Water Resources and the Ministry of Mines and Development? These are areas that have to be clarified. Funding from 5% of petroleum profit tax. Petroleum profit tax also is tax collected by Federal Revenue Service, but is also remitted to federation accounts, which belong to the three tiers of government. Again, in the same manner as the Development Natural Resources Fund, this might require the concurrence of the National Executive Council. We are saying this because currently we have issues at hand which are not yet fully resolved. I'll come to that. The third, funding source, which you saw here, is 50% of duties levied on imported rice, wheat, sugar, milk, and it could include fruits, poultry, and fish. The Office of the General Federation would like to observe that duties and levies are two separate revenue streams paid by importers or exporters, as the case may be, and collectible by the Nigerian Customs Service. The duties collected are paid into federation account also, and it is distributed to the three tiers of government, while levies are remitted as intervention funds in accounts maintained by the Office of the Nigerian Federation. Mr. President approves all expenditures from the account, where levies, we have special accounts in the Ministry of, in the Office of the Nigerian Federation, where levies are remitted, and their approval to take from it is given by Mr. President. Where if we say this development fund will take from this again, then we'll have to look at agencies like National Sugar Development Council, National Food Research Institute, and some others that draw from some of these funds. We have to also look at that area. Just observations for the deliberations by the committee to be much deeper. These are some of our observations. While I was talking about federation accounts, I said some other, we are having some problems. Currently, some acts enacted by this assembly for which we are taking money directly first line from federation accounts. We have received letters from Revenue Mobilization Allocation Fiscal Commission, and which agency again, that is wrong to take first line charge from federation account, because federation account money belongs to three tiers of government. And then especially it's against Section 162, Subsection 3 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And there is also a Supreme Court judgment. Is it Abuja State verse, in 35 others verse? There is one judgment like that, that no federation account, there should be no other beneficiary from federation account other than the three tiers of government: federal government, state governments, and local government councils. So with this, if you situate the funding of these agencies, or of these bills, in these funding sources, we may encounter problems. Because of time, we would have made suggestions as to what sources we think could be sustainable.
No farmer, no nation. Great farmer, great nation. I am going to look at the two bills. The first one, the bill on the National Agricultural Development Fund, we support it 100%. AFAN is gratified to participate in this and we support 100% the evolution of the National Agricultural Development Fund because it is a sine qua non for R&D and food security. We look forward to its enactment or establishment, but we also have noted that AFAN is directly in the board of this fund, which means that all farmers will benefit from it. Unlike in the other places, we have funding from the CBN, from the BOA, from everywhere. The funds, do not go to the real farmers. The farmers do not have a say in how the funds are disbursed. And the funds end up with people who carry their briefcases here in Abuja. The farmers themselves who till the land have to get the money to be able to produce food for all Nigerians. Briefly, that's what we have to say on that. Then on the second bill, the bill on the establishment of the Food Reserve Agency. It is long overdue. As was mentioned here, in 2008, there was, I think, approval of the bill here. Probably it was not assented, but the Food Reserve Agency functioned, and I was a member of the guaranteed minimum price. And I think the first DG or executive director is here. And I was president of the Poultry Association at that time. We had a lot of grains when it was released from the grains reserve. We were able to give, a former president called me and thanked me because I gave him 2,100 metric tons of grains for his poultry outfit, Obasanjo. And in this country, we had a lot of food or feed for the poultry industry. Today, the poultry people are asking us to see how we can intervene to allow them to import grains into the country for them to have feed for the poultry industry. And that is disastrous. It negates whatever gains we have made. We must be able to make sure that that does not happen. And you can only do that from what we have seen recently by reenacting or reinvigorating or bringing about again the Food Reserve Agency. It's a must. Anybody who thinks that they have any inklings as having any other solution than making this possible here to make Nigeria work again is not with us and therefore should go. You must have the Food Reserve Agency. We have just seen that. We had about 100,000 metric tons in a 1.3 million tonnage capacity storage that we built. We were able to build from 2008, 2009, and all that, thanks to the Reserve Agency. I designed most of the silo foundations as an architect in association with some engineers. So we know very well that a lot of work has been done, and that is one of the pillars of CADEP. We try to meet it, and it is there. Today we have a number of the 100,000 metric capacity silos, 25,000, and we have community warehouses all over Nigeria. Our total capacity is 1.3, and they're empty. It's shameful. We must have them back. They must work. People saddled with the responsibility to make this work have to sit up and work. We cannot make noise and do agriculture. We must walk the talk. We must do agriculture in Nigeria. We must do it because we have a population of 200 million people that need food. You cannot tell people any other thing else. You must feed them. You must be able to work assiduously to make it happen. But I support it, and the AFAN supports it. So all the three bills are sine qua non to the survival of Nigeria, are sine qua non to our food system. In fact, I urge the promoters of the first bill to embed within it the evolution of a directorate of food security Let it be sustainably there. Let everyone understand that if you go to the United States today, you will see people queuing on food banks, trying to get food free of charge. You cannot do that if you don't have a good storage system, a good production system, a good research system that will bring that about. I thank you immensely for calling me.
We're in full support of the two bills. We want to say that in as much as a country we produce what we eat, as said by Mr. President, and we eat what we produce, so permit me to add that we should equally export to earn foreign exchange for this country, Your Excellency. We need that to be able to bring in the more money that the country will need. The two major drivers of the economy is self-sufficiency in food and research and development. For any defense policy of a country, food security comes as number one. And therefore, the quarantine service is in full support of whatever we can do as a country to be able to put in place the two bills that are being discussed today so that we can move forward as a country. The quarantine service has in place the export certification value chain, and we have worked on 19 exportable agricultural commodities, most of which are Nigeria is the largest producer. But Your Excellency, we want to say that we observe that in as much as we produce, we are not able to be number one on the export table. And that to us, in the quarantine service, we think we should do better than that as a country. Therefore, with the available resources through the development fund, agri-development fund, we'll be able to meet this target so that as Nigeria is noticed as one of the producers of most of these commodities, we should equally export them to earn foreign exchange for this country, Your Excellency. We have things like shea butter, tiger nuts, yam, cassava. We should be able to export as number one country in each of those. We have made a presentation which we have submitted to Your Excellency.
You need to submit, please, a memo to us, to the Committee on Agriculture. How can we ease export? Nigerians are itching to export, but the obstacle on their way is such that it's virtually impossible. Only few, very few are able to do it, and if you go through the way and manner they do it, you won't want to state it here. And we want to do this thing within the laws of the land. And your institution, the quarantine service, is key. What are the obstacles? How can we remove those obstacles so that we make it possible for Nigerians to export? We are tired of hearing the stories about Nigerian beans being rejected or the European whatever for one problem that was identified, and we fail, so to say, to take necessary measures to correct. Up to this point in time, Nigeria is suffering in that regard. What is the thing that cannot be done? Tell us. Maybe we'll be in a position in the institution of Parliament to see how we can move the executive to remove those obstacles. Please.
The National Agricultural Council is the agency of government responsible for coordinating and regulating the industry in areas of marketing, seed production, and seed use in Nigeria. I want to state that the Council has a very long-standing relationship with this committee, who have actually worked to develop these three key bills that are responsible to develop the Nigerian cross sector. We want to actually thank the committee for working assiduously to assist us to get the bill, National Agricultural Council Act number 21 of 2019. The committee worked so seriously. We are very grateful. On these three bills that are on the table today, particularly for the two of them, the National Agricultural Development Fund, we want to say that the National Agricultural Council is standing in support of the bill. The Seed Act number 21 of 2019, created a fund called the Seed Fund. And I want to state that the Honorable Minister, in the seed retreat that was organized in Zaria, put together a committee that worked on looking at some of the issues that has to do with funding of the agricultural sector, particularly the seed sector. And when it was discovered that His Excellency actually was supporting or a proponent, and he has put together the National Agricultural Development Fund, the committee gave a very, very strong backing to that fund, and with the proviso that the seed sector will be a very big benefactor or beneficiary of that particular fund. And we all know, it has been mentioned here, and there's no need to overflog it, that we have not been able to meet the 10% requirement of the Maputo protocol, particularly when it comes to agriculture. And this is actually a way to ensure that we will be able to circumvent some of the problems. Because without adequate funding, agriculture can go nowhere. On the issue of the National Reserve Agency, a lot has been said about it, and we want to key into the position of the ministry. It is an agency that is so fundamental. Without it, we can go nowhere. We all said that during at the beginning of this pandemic, the honorable the president had to approve the release of our 70 metric tons. If it's not there, and the population of Nigeria is actually increasing, I'm happy. His Excellency said we are close to 400 million. If we don't have this kind of agency that we're talking about to be able to actually put together enough of food to meet some of the requirements, we will not be able to do it.
On the National Agricultural Development Fund, we actually commend the proponent of the bill, because we know that for such a fund coming on board, it will help to increase public financing of agriculture in Nigeria to meet the Maputo and Malabo Declaration. Because we know that Nigeria is obliged to ensure that resources at the maximum level is made available, and that we can improve agricultural productivity and guarantee freedom from hunger for citizens.
I want to observe that little research is going on in research institutions because of lack of funding. As a matter of fact, the little research is because the researchers are funding the research from their salaries. And the reason why researchers are funding research from their salaries is because if you don't do research, you will not be promoted. That is the rule. You must do research, you must publish, you must produce publications, and that is what their promotion is based on. Again, if you don't go for further studies, if you don't get a master's and a PhD, you cannot be promoted. So for you to get the master's and the PhD, you must do projects, and you must carry out those projects on the mandate of the institutions. So the little research findings you are getting in this country is because the average researcher must do research and sponsor it its own fund. Now, so this fund definitely will provide for research in research institutions. Just like the person talked about the issue of seed, the research and the issue with seeds. So, sir, what we are saying is that it's been a long time we've been waiting for this kind of effort to fund research in Nigeria, especially agricultural research, for a country that is unarguably the most, or one of the most endowed nations in the world in terms of diversity, quality, and quantity of natural resources. We have come to be the poverty capital. And the reason is we are not doing research. I appreciate the chairman when he said you can't go anywhere. Nigeria is not going anywhere without research. Not only in agriculture, but in all fields. So we are here to support this fund and this effort, and we appreciate that the Senate is resolute and will brook no shackles or no obstacles to make sure that this bill is passed.
The National Agricultural Food Reserve Agency is very, very important to the survival and the security, food security of this. Let us support it also, and I believe it is in order, and it will enhance the food security of this country and will guarantee the price stability and will meet the requirements of the emergencies, floods, and the COVID-19. An example is what has been used to support the people. And it is important to support that agency because even now, out of the 100 and something thousand metric tons that we have, 70,000 is taken for the support of COVID-19 palliatives. But the capacity of storage is 1.3 million metric tons. Why are we not supporting the issue of expanding the purchase of grains? We should support it by establishing the Food Reserve Agency. Guaranteed minimum price is very important. It is the thing that will make the farmers produce, because you announce it before the growing season. You said you are going to guarantee social price for maize, for rice, for whatever. And that will encourage the farmers to produce in abundance. And then these fundings should be the source, the CBN and so on, should give the support to buy massively from the farmers. That will encourage and support the establishment and the food security situation of this country. I support the National Food Reserve Agency bill. Let us support it.
Request for memorandum on the Nigerian Agricultural Development Fund Establishment Bill 2020. The subject matter referred. Background. I refer to your letter with reference number inviting the Federal Inland Revenue Service to a 2-day public hearing on the above-mentioned bill and to provide further contribution to the bill. The Federal Inland Revenue Service, after carefully reviewing the bill as requested, hereby presents its observation as follows. 2. Observation and views. The bill seeks to introduce a new charge at 5% of the profit after tax of each commercial bank in Nigeria. We observe that this charge has the same effect as a tax. 2. The bill, if passed into law, is contrary to the spirit of national tax policy, which advocates a fewer number of taxes with a broader base. 3. It will promote multiplicity of taxes, thereby increasing the tax burden on commercial banks, which are already complaining of being subjected to too many taxes at the federal, state, and local government levels. 4. The bill, if passed into law by implication, will create another tax agency at the federal level. This is not consistent with the provisions of the Taxes and Levies Approved List of Collection Act Cap T2 LFN 2004 and the Federal Inland Revenue Service Establishment Act 2007. 5. The provision for the transfer of 5% of Petroleum Profit Tax (PPT) into the Agricultural Development Fund is in conflict with the provisions of the Nigerian Constitution, which provides that all tax revenues should accrue into the Federation account. 6. The transfer of 5% petroleum profit tax and 50% duty levied on imported rice, wheat, sugar, and milk runs contrary to the fiscal federalism, as the charge will deplete the revenue accruing into the Federation account, thereby reducing the revenue to be distributed among the 3 tiers of government of the Federation. Number 7, the proposal to transfer those portions of tax revenue runs against the provision of Section 162 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as it means appropriating funds accruing to the Federation to just one entity without recourse to the states and the local government. Number 8, the bill is contrary to the spirit of Nigerian Economic Sustainability Plan 2020, which provides fiscal measures to support businesses in the light of the ravaging COVID-19 pandemic. 9. The bill as currently drafted runs against the spirit of government white paper. 9. The bill is in contrary to the white paper released by our national report. Number 10. The proliferation of taxes also increase the cost of governance and cost administration. Again, the 10 is that if the trend is not checked, it will also continue unabated by other institutions, and consequently, the number of taxes will continue. Recommendation. In view of the foregoing, and without prejudice to the bill, the service hereby recommends as follows: that the distinguished Senate should advocate for more funding to existing agricultural development agencies already performing the similar functions. B, it will be more efficient to appropriate funds through the budgetary process than setting up multiple agencies. C, adequate consultation with the states and local governments to ensure that they are carried along if the Federation account is to be appropriated. Then the last but not the least, the view of the distinguished Senate is invited on the ease of doing business and attracting foreign direct investment. Other attachments to the papers are just an extra from the bill, and then the number of taxes already existing.
We have in existing legislations that there are taxes that you collect, rice, sugar. We want to come and address us as to what happens to those funds when you collect them. 2, Nigeria is a signatory to the Abuja Declaration, where we have committed ourselves to ensuring that was having not less than 10% of our annual budget dedicated to agricultural production. We are hardly at 2% in some years. In some years, it was 1%, 1.5%. If you go to any of these international fora, where states are looking at the relations as to the commitments of agriculture, take a look at what Nigeria is for their agriculture from the 30th century. You feel ashamed of our status. You will find that even commitments of this country, these are obligations through levies and what have you, they are not going to meet. One, take a look at FAO. See how much committed we are. They can't make the salaries of our own because of limitations, of allocations to agriculture. There's a need for a new orientation. We can't be talking about promoting agriculture when we do not know that we have not freed the potential of agriculture. I give you an example. Maybe you will get more, I don't know. But take research. There's no way this country can behave with agriculture without commitments to financing research. I have had opportunity, it's about my 9 years in the Committee on Agriculture, from my team out here. I have visited virtually every private sector, every research institution we have in this country. What do you see year in, year out in the budgets? The envelopes are established by the budget office. How much consultation is undertaken with regard to the problems of this area of priority, every department as priority government. I know that's what to do. The current expenditure will tell you 100%. Overhead, travels, seminars, will tell you 40% and 5%. Capital, where they acquire the equipment, prepare the equipment for science, for research. And there's so much money in our food budgets. And these budgets are very, very inadequate. And that's why we must find somewhere that many will be available and dedicated to the production in Nigeria. I do know as a matter of fact that in the revenue allocation formula, there's about 7.5% dedicated to special funds. How are those special funds administered?
And I think it's one of the questions we would like to have an answer from PAMSEC and your team. What is even our national capacity in terms of food reserve? What should be our national capacity?
How much do we have?
I'm here, Dr. Ngawa is here.
How much do we have?
Now, that 70, 100,000 you talk about is just a drop in the ocean. I'm sure we have a silo that will swallow that 100,000 capacity. One silo. And we have more than how many silos in this country? So what has happened to them? So I think we need to really get these things very seriously. Honestly, I feel very sad because I have been on the other side. I know exactly what the problems are. The chairman of the All Farmers is here. And if I recall, in 1997, Dr. Ngawa, you bear me out, there was a special committee that was set up on problems of Nigerian farmers. I read that report almost every other time. And anytime I read it, I weep. Because while the Nigerian farmers are saying this is our problem, we are doing something entirely different. And that's why we are where we are. The Maputo Declaration you talked about, Rwanda, despite the very devastating genocidal war they had, has committed, today they are at 12% of their total budget, moving to 15% by 2050.
Ghana, yeah.
And I'm telling you today, Rwanda coffee is a brand. And they are developing other commodities using what they call geographical indicators. Because you can decide to say, oh, you have this commodity that is so special to you. And so Rwanda is saying we have certain things that are Rwandan and we want to promote it. What are we promoting in Nigeria? So I think this aspect that the FIRS, obviously, you are saying we should not have a national agricultural development fund.
Yes.
Now, the also challenge we want to say is you can't condemn what we want to do without providing solutions, because the solution you are providing is what we know, and it has never worked. That's why we are looking for something else. Today we know goats are important in Nigeria, sheep are important in Nigeria, but are we having any research on it? Only NAPRI. Poultry, the same thing. So you can count them. So for me, how much do you give NAPRI as research funds? Yet, what is the total amount of milk we import into this country? It's in billions. It's in billions. When they established NAPRI, it was established as a what? as a dairy center in 1923. So please, I want FIRS, you are the one dealing with all of these things. We must put our money where our mouth is. Where our mouth is food. Yes. And Mr. President is clear with his policy directive. Let's produce what we eat and eat what we produce. Exactly. But what happens if you don't produce? What do you eat?
1 month old child must eat food. And as a matter of fact, if at least a proper mechanism is put in place to get the funds required for the betterment of the country, and the federal revenue will generate more taxes through exportation of these foods and also the different value chains that are in the agri sector. So I urge the federal revenue to look into this bill, because this bill is fundamental and is the key to even the corporate existence of this country, because the 6 geopolitical zones we have in this country, each and every one of them has the best resources that can be utilized and can be managed and can be put into very optimum use as regard to productivity and as regard to sustainability. Because most of the countries that develop in Europe and in the Latin America and the Caribbean and also in the Far East, they develop on agri, from the agrarian economy to the industrial economy. And Nigeria, as a case study, I think the way manners we depend solely on the importation is very unfortunate and is very worrisome. So we need to integrate the economy based on the fact of this funding, because funding is the key to all the success we want to get in terms of getting things right and even the employment opportunity, considering the fact of the burden we have on government. So if there is a key sector of the economy which is agriculture and constituted majority of Nigerians, no community that is not into one value chain or the other. So, Mr. Chairman, I think federal revenue need to understand that agri is the only way and is the only key area where government will put its attention. That is why even Mr. President and Commander-in-Chief, because of the nationalistic feeling he has, that we as Nigerians, we need to understand that there is this opportunity in agri production. So please, I want to urge the key stakeholders to look into this very important problem.
On the Agricultural Development Fund, I think virtually everybody present here and every Nigerian believes that agriculture needs more funding. I think we are all on the same page on that agriculture needs more funding. Now, the question is, how do we increase funding to agriculture? The Malabo Agreement stipulates that a minimum of 10% of the budget should be allocated to agriculture. We are not doing that in Nigeria. What we have presently, I think, is around 2%, less than 3%, just a little above 2%. And that is very poor. As one of my colleagues said earlier, security without food, there's no way you can have security when you don't have enough food to feed your people. So it's very important that more funding goes to agriculture so that we can increase the food production in this country. We can increase food security for every citizen. I think that is very important. Now, the National Assembly has brought an idea, and that idea is having a fund. I think we should look very closely at that idea. Presently, we have a lot of interventions from CBN, from Bank of Agriculture. Presently, we also have the NASAL, is it NASAL code? The one introduced by Central Bank. Now, if we can have a body, a fund, a body that coordinates what is happening, instead of, all these organizations are spending money on agriculture, why don't we put it together? So that, and I think that is what this bill is addressing. So I think it's very important for us to look closely into this bill, instead of coming up here to say things against the bill. Yes, you can make your comments known to us, but your comments, I think, it should be such that will improve what we have drafted, not what will kick completely against it. That's my position on that. On the food reserve, I don't think anybody is also against that. We need to have food security. And for us to have food security, we should have reserve that in times of emergency, we can always run to them. And I think that is why this food reserve agency is being proposed. It will enhance security, food security for all the citizens. And I don't think anybody has really kicked against it, only that the ministry is saying that we'll get their comments. So we're waiting for their comment. We don't really know where they stand presently.
I've listened to the arguments being proffered with regard to the agri funding. And to me, there are two issues here. Agriculture should be treated as a national security issue. Because when you look at our population, when you look at the statistics, it's a major national security issue. And as such, the country has to treat it as a national security issue. Because without agriculture, or without adequate provision for agriculture, you're going to have crisis. Secondly, you have a very rising population, you have rising unemployment, you have rising poverty levels. That even makes it more critical than anything else. The issue now becomes why we must give a special attention and focus to agriculture, and that is why this fund has come about. The same priority in which we have created things like TED Fund, because of the priority that we've placed on education, we have to make the argument, and we are making the argument, that agriculture is on equal footing because of all these indices and statistics that we have. So as such, I think it's important that we understand why this bill came about and why we said it. And it's also important to note, as the chairman has said, because of the misplaced priorities, I mean, the Maputo Convention states that 10%, we are doing less than 2% as a country. And with that, so in terms of priority, it's important that definitely this funding gets increased to 10%. The agriculture is also seen as a national strategic security issue, and we must find ways in which that this funding must have a special focus on agriculture. There's no way you're going to grow your agri sector through commercial facility or to the banking instruments. I mean, that's not. There must be a special fund that focuses on the farmers, that focuses on their needs, that focuses on the areas in which we need to. I mean, and that's one of the things why we brought this now. And one of the reasons, and the good thing about the public hearing, is for us to see, okay, based on the ideas that we have proffered, what do you see and what are your own things to it? First of all, let's agree that definitely it's an issue that we need to do. Secondly, the other issue that we need to look at is even with the funds that has been allocated, how efficiently are these funds being utilized? Because you can allocate as much fund as you want into the agri sector. But if the utilization and the efficiencies are not there, you're just going to be pouring water into the basket. So that's another area that we also have to look into in terms of the efficiency in some of these organizations and ministries that are running these agri programs. I mean, in terms of misplaced priorities and making sure that they are more efficient in terms of undertaking some of the responsibilities that they have in this sector. So for me, I think very much aligned with this bill. I think we need to look at the instruments of how we fund it. I think there's still some issues there that we need to look at so we don't overburden all the private sector in terms of additional taxes, but we need to look at how we fund it, and we need to also place it on a high priority in the country as a security issue for the country, and as such, make sure that this establishment is created to have a special focus on agri.
The Senate, as a body established by law, is conscious of these laws, and we are interested in Nigeria moving up the ladder of the index of ease of doing business that this kind of administration is working so hard to achieve. It shows clearly that your contribution also is a testament that there is, can I say, citizen participation and interagency collaboration in lawmaking. You put so much energy in trying to get out your observations, but I feel you are the #1 tax agency of this country. No one can claim to know anything to do with taxes more than you. At this point, I will ask you, we need your help. You have put so much energy in your observations, but you put little effort in solutions. We need your help. We need more memoranda from you. We need more in-depth analysis of this on how can we get more funding for this. Because if you say, like your recommendations here, B part say it will be more efficient to appropriate fund through budgetary allocations. Where is the money coming from? We know how difficult is it. We are all Nigerians here. We know we have to even borrow money to even fund our budgets. So if you appropriate, where the money is coming from? This committee took pains of going through this. How can we get money to establish this? So we are looking for your help, and I know that the door of the chairman, both his house and his office is open for you. Please, we need your help.
Of what the presentation I listened to, Chairman, the one I was looking forward to the more details was the office of the Nigerian and the CBN. No matter how good the law is in Nigeria, no matter how well articulated the concept of any developmental idea, funding is key to it. So, Mr. Chairman, I still want to request the Office of the Attorney General for legislators. What you present to us is what we are seeing. In essence, no matter how well articulated a bill is, if we don't have the well-established source of funding which will guarantee the survival of the bill and its budget, it's again not going to work. And this is the situation we found ourselves in this country. There are quite a number of agencies of government, good as they were in concept, they couldn't perform because we didn't get the funding right. So the fundamental to all that we're discussing, Mr. Chairman, is proper funding. And most of those who are here, especially these two bodies, the Office of the Attorney and the CBN, is very critical to the success of this noble idea. So that is just my submission, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
I want to thank all and sundry for making time to come and honor our invitation by attending this public hearing. on the three bills today, we have considered the bill on Food Reserve Agency and Agricultural Development Fund. I want to thank you, before I get whoever is going to official closing remarks and thanks, for coming and for the participation that you have volunteered. I only want to add, as your takeaway, or our takeaway, the fact that these bills did not just emanate for the sake of developing or generating bills. These bills address the core issues that bother our agricultural development as a country. No matter what anybody will tell us, the fact remains that funding agriculture has been less than you ever will think. Less. We don't seem to have any target at all. Budget after budget, the passing of budget is our responsibility. But we appreciate that over time, from the days of military administration in this country, there was no parliament. So the culture of budgets being developed outside parliament has gained roots, to the extent that till today, the budget office that develops the budget, and we are not consulted. And often where there is disagreement between the position of the budget office and our position, it is given names. It is given names. It may surprise you to even know that even the ministries, in their whispers, not Ministry of Agriculture only, all the ministries, because I don't belong only to a committee on agriculture, 5 other committees, not as chair, but as member. And I discussed with my colleagues, each of them here belongs to some other committees, other than this one. Every ministry cries over their budgetary allocation. But they do so in whispers. Because we have not been honest with ourselves. We don't get the chief executive of this country, the president, to have the true pulse of what is happening. And in whispers, we condemn what government is doing. In reality, we are not telling the government the truth. This president has made it absolutely clear. He wants the diversified economy. And the first point of call is agriculture. Because that is where the welfare of every one of us, that's the hanging point, the low-hanging fruit. If you're talking employment, no sector has potential for employment than agriculture. If you take a look at the banditry that we're suffering, the root cause of it is hunger. It's not political. They only use the political garment, politically dress it. It's not political. Anybody who is comfortable, who has overcome the problems of poverty, would not be on the street, would not be in the bush facing the firing gun of the military that we send there to confront them. Nobody will have his family on harm's way and be happy. Part of it is because of the failure to meet the demands of ensuring the protection of life and property, which is our fundamental contract as a government to the people. So we believe very strongly, and because we support the agenda of this government on agricultural production, we came up with these bills. None of these bills are an executive bill. These are all private members' bills emanating from our chambers, House of Rep and the Senate. Because we believe from the little we've seen, because we won't say we know it all, we don't know it all. But for the little we've seen, there is no way we will move agriculture to the promised land if we don't address the issue of funding. Yes, there may be some misapplication of some funds here and there. I cannot defend that. From what people are saying here, it's not the funds, but how the funds are administered. But first, let there be funds first before you accuse anybody of not administering it properly. The funds are just not there. Again, I want to repeat myself. We have honor as a country. And our government has honor, or is supposed to have honor. Over the years, not in Buhari's administration, over the years, since about 2003, we committed ourselves to Maputo Declaration. Every opportunity I have, I repeat this. I say it time and again. It's a shame that we pride ourselves, we beat our chest as the leading country, the biggest, everything was our biggest, but we don't walk our talk. Go to any of these national conferences. See how Benin Republic here, my corner, Togo, Rwanda, see how they make a nonsense of our presentation sometimes in the national forum. I make bold to say so because I've experienced it. We can't meet. We can't go. The one time that went about 2.7%. 2.7% was the highest. Then I was chairman AFA, Office of Nigeria. Only once. We never got there. 2.7%. And we want to be respected. We want to be respected. How can we be respected? If we voluntarily enter into charters, sign charters, along with other African heads of state, heads of government. Yes, we have problems. Yes, we have limited resources to meet these problems. But let us make bold once in a while to be seen to be given the spirit and construction of charters, agreements that we voluntarily entered. There lies our honor as a nation. So we thought of Agri-Development Bank, a development fund. We can do it. I believe we can do it. You need to go around, see the wastages we do have. The same people will tell the same thing, we're on the track, we're on the track. We're on the track, in their air-conditioned offices, air-conditioned cars. We're on track, we're on track. We are not on track. Those of us who go for rallies, win elections, come to Abuja, we know the feeling of the people. Those of us who live Abuja every weekend and are with our population, our voters, know what they feel and know what they say. Agriculture is the key, and we must finance it.